All right, welcome to the show. In this video, I'll be talking about a recently proposed measure that aims to increase Social Security benefits, particularly retirement disability benefits, spousal SSDI survivors, VA, and SSI benefits. Is it beneficial or not so much? That's a wonderful question, and I'll answer it in this video. Let's go over the specifics. This new measure was recently filed, and as I mentioned earlier, its purpose is to assist increase Social Security benefits. However, I'm going to give you some recent examples of what would have happened to your benefit checks and where you would be now if this legislation had been implemented a few years ago in just a moment. Your benefit each month currently, I'll also give you the name of this legislation, so you may investigate it on your own if you'd like, but I'll cover all the specifics and everything you need to know right here. In this video, let's revisit the discussion of whether this is indeed a good thing or whether it might not benefit the beneficiaries as much as we've been told over the past few years. In any case, let's get started and discuss this new. All right, but before we do, I would really appreciate it if you could do me a huge favor. If you're new here, please be sure to subscribe to the channel by clicking the large subscribe button located just below the video. I'm here for you every day, watching the news, doing the research, answering questions, speaking on your behalf, and doing everything I can right now. Down there, will you make sure you hit that? It's completely free to do so. I want to help you as much as I can, so once again, thank you so much for joining me. I want to help you obtain more money in your pocket through programs raises to benefits, new legislation, and all the stuff like this. I talk about it literally every single day. Very grateful for it. Let's chat. Thank you so much for watching. I sincerely appreciate your support. Please subscribe below. Feel free to share the video with your friends on social media by clicking the Share a button. Regarding the specifics of this legislation, let me first say that while we have heard very similar legislation before, this is a brand new law that was just submitted, yet it mimics many other pieces of legislation that are currently in existence aiming to carry out the exact same action, okay? Allow me to clarify the precise name of this legislation as well as its specifics. If we go back a few years, roughly 2 years, we will find that there are a lot more years to compare. I would like to take the current year, 2024, and the previous year, 2023, as prime examples of this since, when we examine the actual numbers, altering this legislation may not be the best course of action for those who benefit. Despite the fact that politicians keep stating that this would be quite advantageous for the recipients, I'm not too familiar with that. However, I will provide you with the figures so we can examine all the specifics and you can make your own judgment. And once more, I would welcome your feedback. Down. If you would like to share, please do so in the comment area below. Do you find this intriguing, or does it seem like they are treading on pennies in order to get dollars? In this situation, the individuals are not even walking over dollars. Instead, they are trying to pick up other pennies. All right. So let's move on to the name of the legislation. As always, you may verify any information I provide. That's why I'm giving you the titles of these laws, so you can research them on your own. The legislation in question is known as the Boosting Benefits and COLAs for Seniors Act, which is, well, the name of the law. Name, but what exactly do they want to do with it? It all comes down to the COLA, which you've heard me discuss numerous times in previous videos. The COLA is now related to inflation and is adjusted annually. That is the current Consumer Pricing Index, CPI, for urban wage earners and clerical workers. Nevertheless, this legislation, along with numerous other existing pieces of legislation, aim to replace the CPI-W with the CPI, or the Consumer Pricing Index. Price Index for the elderly. Currently, the CPI is fixed, or rather, concentrated, on those expenses that are primarily used by individuals 62 years of age and above. Hence, there is a greater waiting period on those items that individuals 62 and above typically purchase. One of the things that older people spend their money on is healthcare. As a quick aside, as I was conducting additional research on this, I stumbled onto an absurd number that I'd like to share with you right away. This statistic indicated that between the years between 2009 and 2019, the out-of-pocket costs of healthcare for individuals 65 years of age and above increased by 41% over a 10-year period. That's a significant increase, considering that 41% is a lot over a 10-year period. Nevertheless, I reasoned that was a pretty fascinating statistic that I just wanted to quickly add here. But anyway, back to this legislation. So here is what they want to do. They want to switch it from the CPI to the CPE. Keep in mind that they've been all over this, reminding us for a very long time that the CPE exceeds the CPI-W. Well, maybe it does, but allow me to quickly illustrate with a few examples. For instance, recall how much COLA we got in 2023, 8.7%, last year. Based on the CPI-W, which is the actual COLA that we received in 2023. However, we would have received this if they had switched it to the CPE before the previous year, and using the CPE to determine our benefit increase for that year. Imagine how much we would have received as a COLA in 2023. 9%, 10%, no way, not even near. By 0.9%, it would have been less than 7.8% of 1%. If we had used the CPE instead of the CPI last year, we would have spent less on COLA. What is W? We presently use, so once more, we would have been stiffed last year by roughly 1%. That's right, especially considering that inflation is significantly more than even the 8.7% raise we received. But let's use the CPIE in place of the CPI-W to this year 2024. Now recall that we received a 3.2% COLA to our benefits at the beginning of the year. That's based on the CPI-W, which is what we presently use to compute benefits. But if they would have calculated the hike this year for 2024, using the CPE instead of the present computation, which uses the CPI, guess how much the COLA would have been? It would have been 4%, okay? That means it would have been 0.8% more this year. Does all of this make sense? Well, so in 2024, we would have received 8 or 10% more in our COLA than we did in 2024, when we would have been stiffed by 9 and 10% last year. Basically, it's a wash, but we would still lag by 1/100th%. Is that reasonable? Actually, we would be more behind because last year's increase compounded. So this year, we actually received a real dollar increase, in addition to the 8.7% from the previous year. Now that it makes sense, allow me to add a little twist. I know you enjoy it, so allow me to add a little twist. This is what I believe they should do, but I'm not sure whether they would implement it. This, however, is just my perspective. As you can see from the 2 years of samples I provided, it's a toss-up and doesn't really help us. The CPE and the CPI-W run, kind of exchange, but they don't really service anyway, right? Well, here's my little take on it if I could write a little piece of legislation. Here's what I think is the best and highest priority, and here's what I want to say about it. All right, so here it is. Here's my little suggestion. If I were a legislator returning, I would say, we're going to use the highest or best CPI-W or CPE, whichever is higher. We're using that one for the respective year. Now, let me add a little twist. Last year, I'm going to refer to it as my twist, which may also be the name of my legislation here. Matt's legislation is named the Twist Act. I'm not sure why I'm calling it that, but that's what I'm calling it at the moment. Just made that up on the spot. But anyhow, here's what I would say. We're going to use highest and best. So for the COLA, last year's CPI-W exceeded the CPE by 9,910%. The Twist Act, written by me, yours. Actually, with the Twist Act that I'm currently proposing, they would have used the CPI to give us a 4% increase for 2024. As you can see, we would have entered with an 8.7% COLA percentage. What I'm trying to convey is that, at the end of the day, it doesn't make sense to keep saying things like, well, this year you're going to get, a little bit more, and last year, sorry, you got less. When we examine the CPI-W and the CPI over extended periods of time, the CPE only slightly outperforms the CPI-W over a 10-year period. I apologize, but 1.3% is not enough to get me thrilled. I'm not getting out of bed for it. 1.3%, I apologize. I won't be waking up that day. I'm not sure, but that isn't a very good rise over a 10-year period. With my little Twist Act, though, I'm not sure what the actual figures would be. I did not perform extensive arithmetic on it, but I'm ready to wager that we would be running many percentage points. I would have to go back and compare everything. Hi, I'm not suggesting that this is a great solution, but saying something like, okay, we got the CPI, we're going to use highest and best for the respective year, whatever comes in hotter, that is what we use to adjust benefits. A more accurately for fixed would be a much better course of action moving ahead. Income beneficiaries once more. It's not a perfect answer, but at least it's something to consider here.